We're moving right along in this study about the stars, and this one's called Hidden Stars. In Acts 27, there's a chapter that tells of Paul's voyage in a storm, in a ship, and there's a verse that says this: "When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up hope of ever being saved." So imagine being on a ship in a storm and not seeing the sun or the stars for days. I know in the north, in the middle of the winter, there's a depression that sets in when folks don't see the sun, when there's snow and clouds every day. That would be okay for a day or two, but we all need the sky to clear up eventually, don't we? Winter can be a dreary time for those where harsh winters occur. And where I live, summer's hard to endure because the sun appears too much, too long, and too hot. But I recall one time when our family was vacationing in Wyoming and we heard about a fireworks display happening in an open field near the town of Sheridan. We drove to this field that had a wide open sky and we watched the most spectacular display of fireworks and light that we had ever seen, and we still talk about it to this day. It was so spectacular because the sky was so dark that the display of light was astounding against it. So I cannot imagine living in a place where neither sun nor stars appear for weeks at a time. We need the warmth of the sun and the wonder and the twinkle of stars in order to survive. So when we read on about that storm and the ship, Paul begins to give the men instruction to impart wisdom and lead them, just like we talked about last time. So one thing he says to them is that not one of them will lose a hair from their head. Now, how is that encouraging? Well, God says in his word that all the hairs on our head are numbered, and he knows the stars by name, so that encouragement would bring peace that all is well because the sovereign God is in charge. Paul then took bread and gave thanks in the middle of the longevity of the storm when the sun and stars had grown dark, because he knew they were still there. And at the end of the chapter, we do read that everyone reached land safely. But what if Paul had not been on board that ship and knew that even though the night was black and the stars were hidden, that they would make it safely without a hair lost? Paul was the shining star when the stars above had disappeared behind stormy clouds. He was the reflection of the sun when the sun in the sky was obscured and not seen. Paul knew enough about the one who had rescued him from a life of killing Christians, changed his name, offered mercy, that he was able to stand in the middle of a storm, in the middle of the dark, and shine like a light. This devotion here is an extension of what we talked about last time, about imparting wisdom and leading others. What does that look like practically? It looks like standing in the middle of chaos and havoc near death and reflecting the sun. Don't you think that entire boat of people would have been lost and drowned had there not been one person on board that shined when all was dark? Think about those in your life that have been a shining star when life had darkened the lights around you. I think about a friend who encouraged me when we lost our home, offering words of kindness that have stood with me my entire life. I've also had friends show up to serve and give when I was overcome with grief, and others have taught and shown me what it's like to thrive in the middle of hard things, like raising children with disabilities or enduring the life of a caretaker for an aging parent. Those are the shining stars on the boat on which I'm traveling, and there will be days when the sun and stars refuse to shine above the sea on which we're traveling. It will be scary, and we might think we've lost all hope. We won't have the courage or strength to do anything on our own, and we might be afraid of sure doom. But wait, there will be shining stars because God said they would be innumerable like the stars, unable to be counted like the grains of sand on the sea, and there they will be standing on the ship beside us, or we might be the one standing beside another. Those guys in that ship were floundering and trying all sorts of ways to save themselves, and then Paul spoke. He told them to keep their courage, not be afraid, and assured them they would live. He told them to eat, and they did, and they gained courage. Now the ship they were in broke into pieces, but everyone landed safely with their hair intact. Be a shining star in the middle of the darkness in the lives of others, and look for shining stars when you're the one under the dark sky. And there's never a lack of stars to shine because God said so. So all we have to do is believe and follow and live, because there's always hidden stars.